Our question today comes in from @AnfieldRockandShock8, and it's which players in Europe are playing really well but haven't been talked about enough. So obviously the leagues have now really got started. The Champions League, the Europa League is in full flow. So today we want to analyse players that deserve more credit on the basis of their performances so far this season. And McCubs, we're kicking off in Germany, in Dortmund, but probably not with the player you'd have thought, because he's certainly been getting enough credit, Erling Haaland, but someone at the back.
Yeah, he's been getting more than enough credit, hasn't he, Haaland? Not to take away from what he's been doing, because he is pretty ridiculous, isn't he? Mats Hummels has had an excellent start to the season, hasn't he? I think, last season, obviously, Borussia Dortmund spent a lot of money to get him back to the club. He was 30 years old. He'd spent those 3 years at Bayern. By the end of his time at Bayern, he wasn't even necessarily the first choice centre back. I think the process was already kind of starting with Niklas Süle kind of preparing to take his place. 37 million euros, which was reported at the time, did seem a bit steep. And I think probably in his last couple of years, especially his last year at Bayern, I think he definitely wasn't performing at the level that we'd seen him before. But I think it was easy to forget that, the early 2010s, I was thinking about this earlier, I can't really, aside from Piqué and Mascherano, who were kind of at the peak of their powers at Barcelona at the time, I can't really think of a better ball-playing centre-back in Europe at that moment in time. Let me know in the comments if I've missed anyone out really obvious. But yeah, he really was one of the top defenders in the world, and I think he's just kind of regained that kind of form this season. And I think also you have to consider that Dortmund's defence did take a bit of a dip following him leaving in 2016. I think they conceded less than 35 goals in his final term there under Tuchel. And then 3 seasons after that, I think they've been kind of topping the 40 goals against mark pretty consistently. And I was actually, I don't know, I wasn't that fussed about the move, to be fair. I thought Dortmund had a very young and exciting back line, but one that was quite beatable, and I think bringing that kind of experience back in was a very positive thing. I think his form last season, again, maybe wasn't the most consistent, but I still think they shored up defensively, and that's definitely carried on into this season even more so. So last term, obviously they finished 13 points in the end behind Bayern, conceded 41 league goals, which is actually only the 4th best record in the division. So I think that was still a marginal improvement on the season before. But this term, they've just hit a new level, I think. They've obviously got 18 points from their first 8 games. Very impressive stuff. That's 3 more than at this stage last year. I think we can probably take a bit more away from their form maybe in 5-6 games time when we kind of enter the kind of halfway stage of the season. But the early signs are pretty promising. As you say, Dukes, Erling Haaland has been a big part of that, hasn't he? 16 goals from his first 11 UCL in league games. I think that's up to 18 and 12 after last night. But yeah, the defence has been just as good. They've only conceded 7 goals in 8 games to date. 3 of those actually came against Bayern. With the exception of that very high scoring match, they've been pretty much impenetrable. And that's despite injuries to Zagadou and Schultz, which has forced them to play, a very old Piszczek in there, forced Delaney to come back into defence at points as well. And the common denominator there is Hummels, and he has been outstanding. 3.9 tackles and interceptions per 90. He's winning 84% of his ground duels as well, which is pretty excellent. For context, Virgil van Dijk was averaging around 75% last season, and I think that metric is always a little bit variable. It kind of depends on the kind of style that you're set up in. Depends on the kind of players you're coming up against, but generally speaking, that's excellent. Also winning 73% of his aerial duels, completing 85 passes a game, around a 90% pass accuracy as well. So all the base level kind of defensive, kind of good defensive numbers there. But it's his involvement in build-up, I think, which has been the most impressive. He's completing 7.8 long balls a game. That's only topped by Kimmich among outfielders in Germany. And he also leads his team for passes into the final third as well. Just all in all, he's really kind of hitting that kind of form that we kind of saw from him in the kind of 2011 to kind of 2014 kind of heyday of Borussia Dortmund in the early 2010s, which is great because I think one of the main concerns for him coming back to Dortmund was that he's not as fast as he used to be, coming into a very young, dynamic, quick side. Was he going to be able to keep up with the kind of style of play that Lucien Favre has implemented at the Westfalenstadion? He's become a real kind of a real focal point, as it were, for lack of a better word, in terms of how they've built attacks this season. And I guess players like Jude Bellingham, Gio Reyna, who are kind of coming into this side very, very raw, can only kind of benefit from having such an experienced head behind them who's playing at such a high level still. Going back to the defensive stats very briefly, and it's definitely not a fluke that they're conceding so few goals. I think they're generating just 0.8 expected goals against per game. That's compared to 1.3 for Bayern, who I know have had their defensive issues this term. But that's quite a significant improvement on last term. I think RB Leipzig are the only team to post a better defensive record according to XG in the Bundesliga. So that suggests that once Dortmund have a fully fit back line, that they'll they've already got a very, very good base to build off. And I think that actually, more so than Haaland's form, makes me think that they could challenge deep into the Bundesliga this season, especially better than their efforts last term. So that's really exciting for me. And that's translated to the Champions League as well. Obviously, they haven't lost. Haven't even conceded actually since that opening day defeat to Lazio. Obviously beat Bruges 3-0 again last night. They're in pole position to qualify from Group F. They haven't reached the Champions League quarterfinals since 16-17. So it's looking really good for Dortmund this season. And I think Hummels, just as much as Haaland, is the man that Dortmund fans need to thank so far.
I would totally agree with that. I was pretty sceptical when he arrived, I have to say. I thought the fee, which as a club record was a lot to spend on a player who seemed to be in decline, but the way he's bounced back after a challenging first year to really nail down that sort of key man in that Dortmund side and play so well alongside Akanji, and lots of the defenders are actually defending much better. I think Thomas Meunier might be a slightly better one-on-one defender than Hakimi was last year, probably not the same attacking threat. And Zagadou's now got a big issue to get back into that side after such a promising start to his career. He's now had quite a few injury issues, but Dortmund looking pretty good. And with Bayern's sort of injury issues and problems at the back, who knows? Maybe there could be a title challenge deep into this season.